FBI/CIA agents of Reddit, what's something that you can tell us without killing us? If you go through the FBI interview process, it takes a while. Chances are you're going to have to spend some time working on crimes against children, which is really tough and most people don't want to do it. My dad worked for the government, and he told me that anytime he had a meaningful interaction with someone who wasn't American, going over to my friend's house for Lunar New Year, or going on vacation to Canada, he had to report it all, and if he saw anything suspicious. Worked with a woman who was former NSA. We would always beg her to tell us shit, but she never did. The one thing she did say, though, was that during training they show them a video of a bunch of things they've found out about and stopped. She said she hardly slept for 2 weeks after watching that. I talked with some CIA recruiters towards the end of college and almost applied earnestly after a large group QA and then a much smaller one. The thing that stuck out to me was that the guys said most CIA agents are out of shape and have limited combat training with guns or hand-to-hand. They made it clear that it's the military that uses force. If confronted, they were trained to immediately surrender, or to drop their bags and run if possible. I was an analyst, not an agent. Officer. 85% of all classified material is classified because of how it was collected, not because it is juicy, useful. Yes, you boss and co-workers said that shit about you. Related, I was in the sauna at my gym when this naked old man with extremely long testicles started talking to me. Somehow the conversation ended up on the topic of my new roommate, who happened to be Saudi Arabian. He then proceeded to tell me he worked for the FBI and knew exactly who I was and asked if I would like to make some money every now and then, for giving him information. I said sure, not because my roommate was sketchy, but because he got drunk one day and pissed on my couch. This was 10 or so years ago and I never really heard from him, but I think my phone was tapped for a short span of time. Met an old, retired, CIA spook at a wedding reception. Spitting image of Colonel Sanders. He was amazing. So I asked him, I don't want you to tell me anything you can't, but I'd love to know, when Kennedy got killed, what was the talk around the water cooler in the office? He didn't halt, or pause to think. Hell, we all thought Johnson did it. My great-uncle told us late in his life that he didn't work for GE as an engineer his whole career. He actually worked for the CIA and that's all he would say. Edit, since you're up in my business, my great-uncle was a very Christian man. I doubt he was lying or suffering from dementia. That said, I was young when he died and fuzzy on the details. I'm not one but my friend is. She went off the grid after she graduated college, got recruited by the CIA. She told us she was interested and majored in political science. I hope she's doing well. Operation Ivy Bells was a plan to tap Soviet communication lines. The cover story they used was that they had divers diving down to recover fragments of a new Soviet supersonic anti-ship missile. The communication line tap was a failure due to a spy. However, the dive teams successfully recovered all fragments of the missiles from the Soviet weapons tests. The US was able to reverse engineer one and subsequently learned they were radar-guided only and the assumed IR guidance did not exist. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it, but a mentor who definitely wasn't supposed to tell me used to be a white hat for the FBI. Apparently, all he did was search for pedophiles by tracking child pornography. He said he didn't stay for very long because it was messing with his mentality. There is a book called Moscow Rules. It was written by 2 CIA people, all about, well, disguise. The CIA had all these agents in Russia, but the Russians were insane about following literally every single American in Russia, 24/7, looking for spies. So a huge part of their job was trying to shake off the KGB. They had crazy quick change disguises, all sorts of stuff. The movie Argo was based on one of the writers somewhat. My dad worked for GCHQ in the 80s doing voice recognition and he can't say anything more for a decade more. The way they can recognize you by Siri/Google today was being used in the 80s, just a bit slower. I worked with the Australian Federal Police with the Spider Squad doing computer stuff for them in regards to pedos and finding trafficking victims. It is the most heartbreaking work, but when you get them, the office looked like NASA after a Mars landing. Edit. Left 3 and bit years ago but do get called up to lend a hand every now and then. Not an FBI or CIA officer here, but my sister is a district attorney, and over the years she has prosecuted a number of animal cruelty cases. This led to her having an ongoing partnership with the FBI for the last several years. It turns out the FBI started tracking animal abuse cases about 10 to 15 years ago due to the incredibly high correlation between abusing animals when you're young and becoming a serial violent offender as an adult. Brian Bendis, creator of Miles Morales, author of House of M, etc., has a story about doing a talk at GBCI at Langley and being told to wait in a break room, Not allowed to have his laptop, phone, his own notebook or pen, but was supplied with a notebook when he walked in. It'd be reviewed when he left. A young analyst walks in for coffee, sees him sitting there, recognized him as famous comic book author Brian Michael Bendis, and starts to react like a fan. He then pauses, starts sweating, and quietly asks Bendis if this is a test of some kind. Your iPhone is just being a DK by not unlocking with your mask on. It can totally recognize you with your mask on or off, or glasses on or off, or hair up or down, or hat or no hat. The technology is stupid accurate, and isn't expensive, and is widely available. 95% of individuals can be uniquely identified using as few as 4 spatio-temporal points. Want to work for them? Prepare to do a fair amount of paperwork. The form will ask for each of your employer contact information of friends, your history of addresses, etc. They will then send an agent to interview a number of these people. Next, you have to take a psychological exam and interviewed by a psychologist. Finally, you'll have one last interview with a polygraph and a professional lie detector. Secret you should know: removing tag on pillow will get you tortured. We have full access to Google's ad network. If we really want to track someone, we use that. Not a federal agent, but like Mint, is literally an API and the source code for it. And you think it's not being used? Mitochondria are the powerhouses of the cell. My sil is involved in these organizations. She can't tell us much about what she does, but she has a large backpack with a radio phone on top. If the phone rings, she's told us you don't answer it. You just drop everything and get out of town faster than ASAP. In the 80s/90s, with marginal seismometers and a little computing power, people in Australia tracked nuclear explosions. That's the cover story. Think about what people with today's seismometers and supercomputers can do. Somewhat unrelated, but my great-uncle was a FBI agent. Every time we would ask him if he had any interesting stories, but he would say he was sworn to secrecy. After 10 years of hearing this, my sister asked, "Really?" And he responded with, "No, I just don't remember anything interesting happening." My aunt has been an FBI agent for 25 years. The only thing I know about her job is that she's an office administrator. But her information went public somehow when she was part of the team that investigated the Mandalay Bay shooting in Las Vegas. Someone found the name and address of most of the agents that worked that scene and put it up online. Not sure why. She also took me and my family on a tour of the Las Vegas FBI headquarters about 15 years ago. One thing interesting that I remember about the building is that all the doors were floor-to-ceiling 9-foot doors. Thought that was weird. There's a handicap bathroom next to Hangar 18 in Area 51 right behind the fuel tanks that nobody ever uses. It's so clean. Wait, that might have been classified. Sorry. Also, might want to check up on your life insurance policy real quick. I stayed with an FBI agent in a hotel for a weekend. I can tell you that he likes Saturday Night Live and seemed like a decent guy. I wasn't FBI/CIA, I was NSA, but was integrated with both for a few assignments, and the biggest thing is that it's all way more office space than Tom Clancy. Also, every cafeteria has a buffalo chicken salad day, and it's usually the best thing they serve. I was raised by someone who worked for the FBI and grew up around a lot of people who worked there. As a kid, I was pretty surprised to learn how many of them believed in aliens. I was even more surprised to learn how many of them believe in angels. If you apply for a job at GCHQ MI5 MI6/Filingdale/etc., they will talk to every member of your close family, and if any minor red flags come up, you might not get the job. And also, if you are Chinese/Russian/North Korean/etc., I think that it probably goes to a grandparent or great-grandparent being from that country. You will not even be able to apply. Source: Stepdad was in MI6, and fun fact, if he wants to go to certain countries, e.g. Israel, he has to ask permission from the mod to travel there. Just so you people know, there will be a case file opened in order to investigate and document this Reddit post. If I can trust that she's telling the truth, Dari's an old lady in town who was in the FBI back in 50s/60s. She said Nikita Khrushchev was a short man. Aliens are real. JFK was kind of a douche, and we did what anyone would have done in our shoes. We used Ken Kesey as an asset to feed LSD to hippies because we wanted to chemically neutralize them to prevent a communist revolution. We're doing the same thing today with nitrous. We rarely hate hippies, it's a whole thing. We like to hang out after hours and drink mimosas and share memes that we found when we were monitoring your phone. We've all seen you naked. Just a day at the office, you know? Torture doesn't work, but we totally can make people tell us things they'd rather not. It's all about leverage and pressure points, and I meant emotional, not physical. I used to live in a CIA-approved neighborhood near CIA headquarters. Rumor was it was approved because there was only one way in and out. I was among a bunch of spooks and didn't know it for a long time, frankly, until I started dating a former convict lol. Anywho, a bunch of CIA people would meet in the mornings at a Starbucks and then get driven in a white van to CIA headquarters. It kind of weirded me out when my neighbor knew about my promotion. She said she read about it in the paper. It was not in the paper. Also, a Russian couple disappeared after living in the hood for 8 years. That's all I got. If you ask McDonald's for fries without salt, you get fresh hot fries. Then you salt them yourself. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Polygraph tests are bullshit, and they only really work by convincing you, the subject, that they can tell when you're lying, so you'll be more inclined to tell the truth. A machine cannot tell if you're lying, period. My spouse is an FBI agent. One of the things they had to do at the FBI Academy was go to the Holocaust Museum in D.C. The lesson was what can happen if you blindly follow orders without ever questioning the morality/intent behind them. I found that pretty compelling, and I was glad to hear that it's part of their training.